you've done so much work on counterterrorism over the years. What do you make of simply how these Russian bots are approaching this new particular tactic?
Sure. This has been a big week with the pressure on tech. Not only did you see the Russian bots come out in full force after the horrific and tragic events in Florida, but you also saw last week the Mueller indictment citing Facebook, I think 30-something times, Twitter and YouTube all mentioned. And that's because the tech companies have a number of problems on their hands. The bots, which came out after the Florida shooting, trending hashtags, trying to create divisions and divisive rhetoric, also, fake news, conspiracy theories. This is not new, but the real concern here is that this same tactic and strategy is going to be taken again in the midterm elections, and this same tactic and strategy is also taken by terrorist organizations who operate on these platforms. So I think what you're seeing right now is just another issue area, a tragic school shooting that Russia is trying to exploit across these platforms, and they clearly still have the ability to do so despite some minor reforms that have been made.
Selina, walk us through the tactics step by step.
What's fascinating here is that there's almost the exact same playbook that's been played over and over again. I spoke to the researcher of the Hamilton 68 project, which has been exactly tracking this, and he says it's almost exactly the same as what happened in Vegas. So day one, these bots are taking just a very innocuous tactic of retweeting and tweeting the breaking news. Then on day two, they're starting to tweet amplifications of the most extreme and divisive issues and opinions on gun control. Then by day three, this is when they start to promote conspiracy theories, and they want to start to destabilize American trust in public institutions, saying that the government, the media, the police are all lying to you. And this is something that we've seen over and over again. You mentioned earlier the NFL anthem issue and the presidential election. So the fear is that this same playbook will then be applied to the midterm elections coming up.
Now, Tara, how big a concern is it that this could move not just from, sowing discord on social media, but fabricating real-life events? I mean, we now know that the Russians were behind creating a real-life Islam protest in Texas. Could we see more of that?
Absolutely. I mean, this is right out of the Russian playbook, and they're going to continue to repeat it because it doesn't require them to employ a lot of resources. It's easy, and they've been effective. What needs to really happen here is the tech companies need to take steps not only to get down content that violates their terms of service, but there are other measures that they can take. Obviously, you're not going to be able to control what every individual writes online if it doesn't sort of cross a particular threshold. Having said that, on ad buying, there are specific measures that, Congress is pushing them to take going into the elections. On bots, the tech companies themselves have said they're not in favor of these and are trying to crack down on it. Well, why are there so many bots still operating on these platforms? That is a measure that if Twitter was serious about, I've seen different levels of reporting. I think 15% of accounts I've seen cited as are bots, and then 5% are what the tech companies claim. In any case, there are enough bots up there that are amplifying the messages of these fake news, Russia propaganda, counter, intelligence operations that may influence our midterm elections. So if the companies are serious, there are clear measures that they can take to crack down on some of this and make a real dent in the problem. Unfortunately, we haven't seen that happen yet, as evidenced by what's been going on this week.
So, Selina, you cover Twitter and you know extensively what they're doing and what they're not doing. How are they actually cracking down here when, yes, we know that a lot of bots have been kicked off the platform, but obviously there's still more than enough?
Twitter is doing all that it can, but they have multiple constraints. First of all, this is a company that has had financial issues. They only recently just reported their first real profitable quarter. They are dedicating as many engineers to this issue as they can, but we haven't heard them actually take steps to hire new people to address the problem. Another issue is that even though these algorithms that Twitter has are getting better and better, these bots are changing their tactics much faster than Twitter can keep up. I've spoken to many people on background who work at Twitter or used to work at Twitter who describe it as a whack-a-mole problem. The moment Twitter changes their algorithms to address spam and bots, we see a new type of pattern emerge, and that's the challenge that they're up against. That being said, they have made steps for transparency. They're starting an ad transparency center for political ads. They said in the 2018 elections they're going to be working much closer with candidates to make sure that they try to keep it as free from Russian meddling as possible.